Hey Husker fans, Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. This is our recruiting update for the offense for this week. It is May 15th, so the week of May 14th. Hello everybody, Sam McKewon. We are talking about, well, hey, big news on the recruiting front for Nebraska, although it didn't go Nebraska's way. Quarterback Raiola decides to commit to Georgia, and in doing that, he kind of frees Nebraska up to pursue some other quarterback options. The Huskers have put a lot of work into trying to get Raiola, but in doing that, obviously, we're not able to pursue maybe quite as much some other in-state options like Daniel Kaelin, who decided to commit to Missouri. Maybe Dante Reno, who is committed to South Carolina, committed to Marcus Satterfield there, but he hasn't really, he's pretty committed there now, because usually when you're going to make a change like that, you try to make that change and get the kid on board almost right away. Nebraska didn't do that because it chose to pursue Dylan Raiola. So now the question becomes, now that Raiola is committed to Georgia, how much does Nebraska pursue those two names that I just gave you? And then also, where else do they go? Do they go after some new names in 2024? Obviously, McKewon is coming up here in early June, but do they go after anybody else, or do they wait through the year, watch some senior tape, see if a kid grows up a little bit, and then pull the offer? Because there's some opportunities to maybe get a kid that's committed to a group of 5 school, but then has a big senior season. Maybe you can go in and get a guy that you really like. That's always possible. That's something Nebraska will have to consider. So a quarterback kind of starting over for 2024, but Nebraska kind of had a sense that Raila was maybe going to go to Georgia or elsewhere for a couple of months, so I don't think Nebraska was caught completely off guard there. Of course, Dylan Raila is going to be a very good player at Georgia. I do suspect he's going to sign there, and then we'll just see how it goes once he gets there. From the running back position, well, I don't think there's a lot. I mean, I think they're still kind of working. Obviously, Nathaniel Frazier is a guy that they would love to get out of California. Not a ton of other names really on the board right now, but they do have some young players in the program. Quentin Ives being joined. Obviously, I think Nebraska's going to do, again, some senior film review, get a sense of what's around some of the players who might have good senior seasons, and then maybe offer some kids after the first 4 games or even the last 8 games of the season. I think sometimes you got to give a kid a little bit of time during his senior year, and they're like, yep, that's the guy. So I think running back is still sort of a question. At wide receiver, I think Nebraska has a pretty good idea of where they want to go. It's going to be a question of whether they can land those players. 2 of the kids are from in-state. That's Davon Hall and Isaiah McMorris. Both of them are kind of scheduled to visit in late June, the Bellevue West receivers. Now, they've got a lot of other teams after them. Oklahoma, Penn State, Wisconsin, Kansas State, all kinds of teams. However, I think Nebraska will get a good chance with both of them. I think they're both very good players, and Nebraska will get a look at them. Ernest Campbell is going to be visiting, I think, roughly the same time. He's a smaller receiver, and he'll be a guy to watch, kind of a high 3-star guy. And then Jakari Barney is another name to watch. I'm still learning a little bit more about him as a player. He's kind of an athlete, kind of on the smaller side, fast guy. We'll see a little bit more about him. I think he may visit in early June. On the offensive line front, well, Nebraska, as you know, already has a commit from Gibson Pyle, and then Ashton Murphy is slated for the defensive side of the ball, but you never know. Caleb Pyfrom is a guy that I think Nebraska would like to have in its program. The Omaha Central offensive lineman, guard, tackle at the college level. You could probably see him playing both, and obviously they would like to have him. I think Nebraska is still working on bringing more offensive linemen up. Obviously, Brandon Baker is somebody they really want out of California. It's hard to pull players out of California if they're linemen. Usually they stay out west, and Baker, one of the best offensive tackles in the country, would be a huge coup for Nebraska. On the tight end front, you're still looking at Carter Nelson. He's the name. He's the name to watch. Obviously from Ainsworth, if they get him in the fold, then he and Ian Flint probably close it down. I think for the 2024 class. Obviously Flint is already in it. He's more of an inline tight end, a blocking guy, whereas Nelson is a guy you can flex out a little bit more like Thomas Fidoni. Nelson will be at the state track meet this week doing what he normally does. We'll be curious. He hasn't done a lot this spring in terms of state track, but he's now going to be at the state track meet, and we'll see how he does. And then he's going to take some visits, some big-time visits in early June, because he has the kind of skill set that a team like Georgia, which is producing elite tight ends year after year after year, would really like to have in their program. So Nebraska's got a fight on its hands for Carter Nelson, but I do think the Huskers have put themselves in reasonable position. Okay, that is our recruiting update for this week. We'll be back next week to talk more about developments on the offensive side of the ball.